Hello and welcome to this week's Liminal Tarot. I'm Breach Burke and I've flipped the camera around this time so that you can see me now that I have a new camera stand. And so we're going to do this week's reading. This is going to be a reading for the week of July. Today's July the 9th. So it's going to be from the 9th to the, to the 15th, to this coming Saturday. So that's how I'm going to do it this week. We're going to start with our cartouche cards if you're not familiar with this channel. Also, please like, subscribe. Let me know if this video resonates with you. I would really appreciate knowing how much this applies. Yeah, this is a general reading, general collective reading. So like with things like this, there may be certain things that apply to you and certain things that don't, or maybe they don't apply to you right now and they will down the road. Typically, if you're watching it, it's because there's probably something in it that is meant for you. But because it is not a specific reading and it's a general one, sometimes there's, things that you can take from it and other things that maybe don't make sense for you at this point in time. So as they often say, take what resonates. Okay, so we're going to start with our cartouche cards, which I use, and I always lay out in this format. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And so I've got my cards here. Let's see if I can put this down a little bit so you can see some of them. Okay. I'll probably hold these up as I go along. And with these, I'm going to use tarot. Even though it is a hot, steamy July day with lots of rain, I'm actually going to go ahead and use the my Halloween tarot. I'm one of those people who I already have pumpkin spice coffee upstairs, and I'm so ready for autumn. It's not even funny. So yeah, let's use our Halloween tarot to elucidate what we have with these others. So okay. Okay, and at the end, we're going to pull a couple of Moonology cards to get some advice for you, as I usually pull a couple of extra each week. Okay, so our reading goes astrologically. I do this by astrological house. This is just the way I prefer to work. Our first house, okay, so the way that you will be presenting this week, the way that the themes for how you are going to appear to others, and where you might be working on your self-image or self-brand, whatever it is, whatever's public facing for you. We have the Osiris card and we also have the Hermit. Okay, so with these two, Osiris is a card of stability. It's strong Sagittarius energy with this card, and it's just akin to having a very solid foundation. In the first house, it generally means that you can rely on yourself and your own judgment. Now, with that, we have the Hermit card. And the Hermit is about, needing to withdraw, you wanting time away, wanting time to think about things. So I feel like this may be a time in which you are not being so public facing or not putting things out there for people so much, because you are taking time out to reflect on the bigger picture, to see what's going on in your life, what's going on with certain situations. And the Hermit says to us, that there is a need to take time and think and integrate recent experiences before you move ahead. Okay, second house, we have our house of money, values, possessions, things like that. Okay, we have the Ankh card. So we may be wanting to spend money this week on things that, luxury things that we enjoy. Because the Ankh is about passion, about what we're passionate about what we enjoy and what we desire. So this may be a week in which we want to be, spending money on the, there will be, you might be spending money on things that are, more for pleasure rather than functional, or things that you have to do. With it, we have the King of Imps, which is the King of Wands. And this card is about, really this is a card of, somebody who's determined, who's focused on what it is they want and they go for it. Okay, so there's definitely a very strong active energy with this card. Like all court cards, sometimes it can refer to an actual person, perhaps who sets this in motion, or who, maybe this is the person with the money. I mean, who knows? But they're when you see a court card, this is either another person who's bringing this element into your life, or this reflects something, a way of being for you right now. So with the King of Imps, what we're seeing here is there's definitely an energy. The message that I would read these together would be, okay, this is a time to spend some money on yourself. Go for it. You deserve it. Okay, you've earned it, and you know how to. I mean, kings are always about energy that always has to do with what is mature. So this is not the energy of the page or the knight, which tends to be very impulsive. This is definitely more of an energy that's more focused, more mature, more serious, more experienced. So so it's a very good energy to have in terms of when you're thinking about finishing something up, or managing a project or a situation successfully. This is the culmination of the Suit of Wands. So this is this culmination card means that you are in a position where you can rely on your judgment, just like we saw in the first house. Okay, so third house, this has to do with communications, your siblings, short-term travel, things like that. Very Mercury-oriented house. As I've mentioned, the first house is Aries, second house is Taurus, third house is Gemini. Okay, so all things associated with Gemini, and Mercury in particular, which has to do communication, travel, technology, things like that. In a more superficial and fast-moving way, social media type stuff, rather than the deeper knowledge of the ninth house. And our two cards here, we have Buckle of Isis. Okay, so we have our Buckle of Isis this week, and we have the Page of Imps, or the Page of Wands. So Page of Wands, okay, this is the House of Messages, and you've got the Messenger card. Okay, so this does seem like there's going to be some significant or important messages coming in this week. With the Buckle of Isis is about efforts that are made that are rewarded. So any kind of communicating that you do, any kind of reaching out, efforts, things that you're doing, you may be putting a lot of work into something, and perhaps you're not really seeing what the results are yet. When this card comes up, it means that your efforts are going to be rewarded, whether you're seeing it now or not, and there may be some kind of new messages coming in about that. So this is also good for people maybe who are trying to start a business, maybe not sure about what they're doing, or if they think that they're the things that they've started to do, maybe they're not sure if it's going to come to fruition in the way that they want. This is generally a card that indicates that your efforts are in fact going to be rewarded. So expect to be hearing about that very soon. Okay, the fourth house has to do, this is the house of the Cancer, and this is has to do with the home, usually the mother in particular, although it doesn't have to be specifically about your mother. It can be your physical space, and it can also refer to your, I guess you could call it your emotional space. This could have to do with what makes you feel at home, okay, what makes you feel secure. And we have Seth here, okay, so when Seth shows up, Seth often indicates that there is there's a conflict, there's a block, an anxiety, or a problem. Okay, Seth is the bringer of storms, and typically with Cartouche, when you draw Seth in this kind of a context, you always want to draw a second card, and so in this case we have air. So this air has to do, air in the fourth house generally has to do with somebody who's going to make a move, somebody who might relocate. Because air in the fourth house generally indicates a move of home. And if it's not a physical move of home, it's making some kind of significant change to your home. Air definitely is movement and change. But with the Seth here, this is kind of blocked. It's kind of like, well, wait, don't, there may be reasons to reconsider. Perhaps if you're somebody who's, say, been looking for a house, maybe you found a house and you thought, oh, great, this is the perfect house. Seth here would be saying, make sure you check into this first. This may not be what you think it is. Okay, so there's an element here of being careful, or if you're planning to make, big expenses or spend a lot of money on your house or do something like that, this may be telling you, to wait and just, because there may be some details that you're not thinking of. There may be some kind of a gotcha there that's not evident to you right now. With it, we have the King of Ghosts, which is the King of Cups. Now, King of Cups is interesting here in this context. It has to do, it could literally have to do with a water sign person, perhaps male. But this is a very emotional card. And the King of Ghosts or King of Cups is somebody who's very much in control of their emotions. Okay, this is, they're always kind of portrayed as being on the water. It's like the platform of their throne is on the water. And so in a certain sense, there's a placid, calm balance to this particular figure, but there's, rocky, the water's unstable underneath it. So, so this would suggest to me that there's an emotional component to this. There may be a reason that you want to do things or that make changes that may be more emotional than practical. So it's kind of saying, make sure that you're not making an emotional decision, I think is the way that I would read this. If this is not pertaining to something like a physical home change or a physical home move, I would say that this card has to do with, perhaps recent insecurities that we've had about changes. And this then would be urging you that, that to try to keep your emotions in balance and to recognize, what is an emotional situation versus what's actually going on. There's a lot of times it'll show up, usually with 9 of Swords energy, where we are very, very worried about certain things going on that make us feel insecure, okay, since this has to do with our sense of security. And, in that insecurity, we are, in the way that we tend to feel this insecurity, it can, we can make decisions based on emotions that, we feel this way today, we're not going to feel this way tomorrow. So you want to make sure that, you're keeping your emotions, not that you don't want to take your emotions, that you shouldn't take those into account. But I think you've got to be careful that you're not simply making an on-the-spot impulsive emotional decision about something. Okay. 5th house. Okay, this is the house of Leo, and this has to do with if you have children, this might apply to them. This has to do with creative projects. It has to do with our leisure time as well, and also with love affairs, as opposed to marriage situations or permanent legal kinds of relationships. If you're dating or you have somebody who you're in an unlegalized situation with, this generally that would show up in this house. So, okay, so we have Pyramid, and then we also have the Chariot. Okay, and get my light there. So Pyramid has to do with test situations. Now, this can go one of two ways. So either if you are working on something, a long-term project, and you are wondering, if this is ever going to be finished or finished in the right way, the Pyramid in this case would mean it is good news eventually. You're not there yet. There's still some more, tests and trials, so to speak, that you're going to go through before you get to where you want to go. But eventually you will get there. I mean, Pyramid is always good news eventually. That's the nice thing about it. Now, in a relationship situation, what this could be, or even with children, there could be a test situation, a situation where either your commitment to something or someone is being tested, or your boundaries may be pushed by your kids. There's something going on there where there's some kind of a situation where, and usually some kind of a repeat situation or a pattern situation where you're called upon to now make the right decision about something, okay? With the Chariot, they will say this is the fastest moving card in the tarot deck. This card has to do with movement and change and taking control, okay? So this may be, you may be dealing with a situation here in which it is urging you to take control of your chariot. You need to be driving this car. You don't need somebody else driving you. You need to be in control of what's happening here. For some people, this could literally have to do with a trip somewhere. Maybe you're going to be tested by one of your children on a trip. You know what I mean? It could be something like that. But I think that would just be for, maybe very specific individuals. I feel in general, this is more like either a creative project or a relationship situation in which, or again, some kind of an issue with a child where you need to make sure you take control, okay? And that things will be fine in the end. Okay, health issues and work and things like that. Now, again, remember with tarot and so forth, I don't make any kind of medical or health diagnoses for people. So, this is really more general vague health advice rather than anything else. This also can have to do with job for certain people. 6th house is ruled by Virgo, so it tends to have to do with our work in terms of like our service to others or just our actual job as opposed to our career, if that makes any sense. And okay, so you have Hathor here. Now, Hathor definitely is there's a health aspect to Hathor. Hathor sometimes indicates doing something. It has very much the energy of the Empress or Venus energy. So it could be about doing, jobs or careers that have to do with beautifying something, okay? So that might apply to some people, or doing something crafty or something like that. There's a very strong, something that's generally very strongly associated with the feminine. in terms of work. For some people, it's just a woman who's like independent, who has her own job and does her own thing and isn't relying on somebody else's money. That is an aspect to this. However, when I see this with the five of bats, which is actually the five of swords, what this really says to me, I feel like this has a health implication. And so this may suggest that people may be feeling limited in some, maybe people haven't been feeling well. This is a card of limitation. I mean, it can be a card of walking away from something or walking away from an argument or some kind of a situation like that. But for some reason, what jumps into my mind is, people, somebody who is, at least for somebody, this is about feeling limited in some way, like maybe, your health or your energy level hasn't been what you really want it to be. And so with Hathor, there would be a suggestion that what you're eating may be part of what the situation is. Hathor tends to come up with nutritional related things. So just something to think about. If you have been low on energy, you might want to make sure you're getting all of your vitamins. You want to make sure that that the food, what you're eating. I mean, I'm anybody who knows me knows I'm the last person to talk to you about what you should and shouldn't eat, because I absolutely, I don't pay any attention. I mean, yes, I do take my vitamins and so forth, but I eat what I feel like eating. I don't really care. I'm not into organic or pure food or any of that kind of stuff, and I'm certainly not into fruit and veg. So it's, so I'm not one to tell anybody that. However, this could be a case of, if you are not feeling well, you may be lacking something in your diet potentially. Now, if it's talking about a work situation, this could potentially, could potentially be a quarrel at work with a female, with a female person. But, a situation where maybe it's just better to walk away than to engage. So obviously this is different messages for different people. Take it as it resonates. Okay, so let's get to the 7th house, which has to do with your partnerships. These are more permanent partnerships. These can also be like professional business relationships or business partnerships. If you're in business with somebody, this will be part of that. Okay, so we have Anubis. And Anubis implies two things. We also have the 4 of bats here, which is the 4 of swords. And what these cards represent is, the Anubis card has to do with protection, okay? So you may be in a situation where you are defensive or are protecting yourself. It could be, again, like just kind of like we see the Hermit over here in the 1st house. These cards are actually mirror each other. Like the 1st and 7th house, one has to do with you and the other has to do with how you relate. So the 7th house, seeing Anubis there and the Hermit here, makes me think that, you may be feeling in that withdrawal, that protective situation, whether you're actually in a relationship or not. I mean, if you're looking for a relationship, this would be saying, okay, and especially with the 4 of bats, I mean, this is like, you are, you need, this is about taking a break. This person is, asleep. They're laying down. They've laid down. Well, these are their bats, but in the traditional Rider-Waite Smith, it's they've laid down their swords. So you are, so this is about, there's this idea that you need to retreat and take a break. Whether this is, that you might want space from your partner, whether this is, that if you are interested in having a new relationship, that you need to kind of, right now might be a time where you want to feel more like you're protecting yourself, protecting your energy. This may be more of a week for that, regardless of your relationship status. There may be a reason for you to take a time out and consider where you stand in a relationship, rather than just thinking about where the other person stands or what they want. Okay. Okay, 8th house here. This is the house Scorpio. This is the house of transformation. And as I had said to a client yesterday, I said the literal list there is, what was it? Transformation, sex, death, the occult, and other people's money. So it's a very strange overarching house, but as you can see, it has to do with issues it has to do with very, very deep transformations. And also, I believe it has to do with other people's money, because usually we're talking about something that has to do with inheritance, or, something or something having to do with a spouse, something ancestral. Okay. Usually there's that connotation there for the 8th house. And we have Earth here. So for some of you, this is money coming from somebody. This is definitely a financial omen, financial support. Again, it could either be a spouse or it could be a legacy, money that you inherit. Again, that's obviously not going to apply to everybody, but if you are in a situation where you are, a loved one is gone and you stand to inherit something, this could be talking about that. We have it with the 10 of Imps, which is the 10 of Wands. And, you know, this is, the 10 of Wands is about being overwhelmed and overburdened. So actually, if I'm looking at it in the context of finances, it could be that you are putting yourself, like maybe you are working too hard or doing too many things or trying to wear too many hats, trying to do too much stuff. And what it may be saying here is that you actually could use some financial support from somebody. Frequently, you know, a lot of times, especially if you have this kind of independent female down here, or it just does not have to be female watching this video, independent, regardless, that idea of wanting to do it on your own, wanting to be independent, but perhaps maybe being limited in that to some degree. You know, the idea that we would get help from somebody is something, you know, most of the time when that comes up in the readings that I do for female clients, and even in my own readings, it's just kind of like, yeah, but I don't want your help. You know, when you're used to doing it on your own, you know, you're pretty reluctant to have other people come in and do things. But I mean, you know, it is a kind of an idea that we need to let go of a little bit in this culture, that somehow we can't rely on others. In one sense, that is true. In one sense, ultimately, you do need to be able to rely on yourself. In another sense, it's like, well, you know what, but also, you know, we have this rugged individualism that we have that sometimes just isn't, it doesn't make sense in certain situations. So there is definitely the idea of help or receiving financial help or laying down your burdens in some way. You may be overburdened right now. And even if you're not accepting financial help from somebody, this could also just be about, okay, ground, put your feet on the ground, see where you are. Don't allow yourself to be, as they say, up in your head. Don't get stuck in all the different what ifs and the different thoughts about a situation. Like thinking, oh, if I drop this is going to happen. If I drop that, you know, you want to ground yourself and make sure you're making a good decision about what things you're going to be giving up, because you are actually, if it's in the house of transformation, this means your life is moving into a phase where you should not be carrying all that stuff. Okay. So either way, you know, you are moving into a space where you're not meant to carry all this stuff. Okay. So let's go to the 9th house. This is a house of, it's funny, I was just talking about being up in your head and then I got this card. The 9th house has to do with, okay, so it has to do with higher ed. It has to do with philosophy, religion, traditional kinds of structures in that regard. So as I mentioned, the 3rd house has to do with kind of more superficial knowledge. This has to do with very deep knowledge. And it can also have to do with long journeys to different places. So this could resonate in different ways. We have Horus here. Okay, so Horus is a card of, this is actually a very good card. It's a card of popularity. It's usually a very good family card, so there could be a long trip with family, possibly for some people. And there's just this idea of, you know, being able to get through difficult situations. Like Horus is also a card of healing. So it may be that, and again, so this is somebody, if you are a student, if you know, this actually would be very encouraging of somebody if they wanted to go back to school for something. You know, and this also can indicate, I don't know, it just generally is a card of overcoming difficulties and, you know, being popular in some fashion. The popular hero card, you know. But you have it with this 8 of Bats, this 8 of Swords, which is literally what I was thinking about for the last house. Now remember, this is the Sagittarius house. This is Sagittarius energy that we're looking at. And the 8 of Bats, or the 8 of Swords, has to do with being stuck, usually mentally. You're not able to see what's going on because you are so you're so up in your head about something. So again, and especially since this is in the area of higher learning, higher knowledge, religion, like that, it could be that you are, reading too much into something, or being, you know, too worried about something, or too, allowing yourself to feel, like you can't move forward. But really, it is just a mental block. Sometimes when we are too caught up in our thoughts, the only thing we can do is just let everything go and just see. You literally have to kind of go whatever, and then find some totally unimportant distraction to take you away. And then, at some point, it'll come into refocus, but without all of that extra mental stuff that you don't need. Okay. All right, so now we have the, oh wow, okay, this is the 10th house, this is Capricorn, and this tends to have to do with your career, with your reputation, and, you know, how you appear in the world. This is also the house of the father. Both of them are kind of the house of the father. The 9th and the 10th both have that association, depending. But this definitely seems like somebody's in for a job change, okay, because we have water here. And water, it has to do with, again, just like, it's funny, the opposite house is the mother house, which is the 4th house. Movement and change. And so for some people, at least, this is a new job, especially with the Ace of Pumpkins, which is the Ace of Pentacles. Ace of Pentacles is new financial situation. So, and I'm seeing this in a lot of people's readings this week when I've done, you know, individual clients and so forth. There seems to be this idea that whatever you're doing professionally, however you've made your reputation, it's like it's time for a new start. Okay, there's something new coming in. If you have new ideas, this is the time to see about acting on them. And, you know, and for some people, this is literally going to mean a job change. If you're not changing jobs or careers, then there's some kind of a change in the works. It could be a promotion. It could be, if you're in a corporation, you could be taking on a different job or job responsibilities. Or maybe you're satisfied with your job, but you're thinking on taking on a side gig or something. There's something else. There's something new in your energy in terms of your, you know, how you're making your living, or what your career is, what your, as I say, career as opposed to job. Career more being, you know, what I want to do when I grow up. You know, you know, as if, I don't know, I shouldn't say any of us. Maybe I should speak for myself, like as if any of us ever really grow up, right? But I may be just strictly speaking for myself. So changes are coming. 11th house. This is Aquarian energy, and this has to do with, you know, with friendships, with networks, and also with our goals and objectives, the wishes, the things that we're striving for, and the way in which we have our networks and our friends, you know, to support this. So we have the Lotus card here, and we also have the Lovers. Okay. Now, Lotus is about calming the mind. Okay, so there could be, you know, so whether it has to do with a particular friendship or, you know, one of your networks where you might be anxious or worried about something that's going on with a friend, it could be just saying, you know, relax, it's okay, you know. But it also may be pointing to a need to calm the mind. Like there may be some anxiety about things. There may be anxiety about your wishes, about whether or not you're going to get, you know, again, like I'm seeing some of this down here, you know, am I going to, you know, this security stuff, am I going to be able to do what I want? Am I going to get what I want? You know, now if I look at this in the bigger picture, there could be some people who it's like they've been told there's a big change on their job, and now maybe they're questioning their security. Oh, am I going to be able to stay here? Am I going to have to move? Am I going to have to do this and that? That could be the case for some people. But here we have, okay, with the Lovers, now there's, again, two possibilities with this as far as I'm concerned. Usually the Lovers in this kind of case has to represent a choice. You're gonna have to choose between one of two things. So again, if I see this buckle of Isis down here, there's the idea that to, you know, especially for people whose hopes and wishes may be around a business or maybe around like doing something on social media or whatever, you know, there's this idea that you have to choose. Something has to be given up in order for you to get what you want. So the Lovers does have that connotation. For some, too, this could also be, and I have seen this happen, where the Lovers may have to do with a love relationship, and the fact that it's in the friendship house or in the house of your networks, it could indicate a new relationship coming out of your friendships or out of your network. There could be somebody who's been a friend who then becomes more than a friend. So that is, again, not an interpretation for everybody. If it doesn't resonate with you, just leave it alone. But that is a possibility for some of you. Okay, so 12th house. We've got, this is the house of fears. And what you keep in shadow. You know, the first house is what you present to people. This is what you're not presenting to people. This is what's behind the scenes, perhaps even what's unconscious even to you. It can also have to do with foreign travel. And the reason for that is that back in the day, you hear about this more in Vedic astrology. It's the idea that if you went away from home, that somehow you were in exile. So that's why this is considered to be like somebody who is away, who is hidden. Okay, so that's why foreign travel gets conflated with this house. We have Sirius here, okay? And Sirius is a card of, well, it's a card of innovation, change, but change that requires some work, okay? There's some elbow grease required with Sirius. And also some thinking outside the box. I mean, this is not a, this is more innovative. There's very strong Aquarian energy attached to this card. And this is the House of Pisces, so this has to do with our imagination and our ideas. So it could be that, it's telling us to, especially with all these other changes going on, that we need to be thinking outside the box. We don't necessarily want to do things the traditional way. I mean, the 10th house is Capricorn. That's the house of, more traditional ways of doing things. But even in the Earth sign houses, we have Taurus. We have this this kind of need for independence in the Virgo house, which is 6th house. The Earth houses are all showing not only change, but doing it your own way and doing what you want, spending money on what you love, not what other people tell you, you should be investing in or spending on, There's definitely this strong sense that we need to do things differently. And there may be some fears about this, understandably, especially if you are an Earth sign. We're not, generally, even people who deal fairly well with change are not always very good with, they're worried about the level of work that's involved in making a change. But this is like the Strength card. So it almost is like you need to have courage. Like you have what it takes to make the change. And you're thinking that you don't is more of a fear than a reality. And we have it with the Hangman. The Hangman is, again, there's this idea of, seeing the bigger picture. Okay, that's definitely very much in tune with the Sirius energy. You want to see the bigger picture. This is not just about, what's immediately in front of you is not going to represent where things are going. You may have to wait to get more information, because this is a card of waiting too. There's a move that has to be made. And when the 12th house, there may be a reluctance to make it. If you're somebody like me who wants to go overseas, this could just be that, it's a waiting game that's being played before you can actually do that, for those of you who might be thinking about moving abroad, because this would also, there's a lot of people who do want to move abroad. So there's this sense of having to keep an open mind, stay flexible, look into new ideas. There's some work involved in whatever's going on, but don't give up on things because, don't let your fears stop you from going where you need to go. Because right now you just may be stuck. You are going to probably have to give something up, because this reminds me of the Hanged Man, actually, this card right here, because they're both about giving something up to get something greater, to look at the bigger picture. The Hanged Man hangs upside down. So this is like standing on your head and getting another perspective on something. So if you feel stuck, that's usually a good idea, is to try to say, what's the broader picture? I'm looking at it this way. What if I look at it the opposite way? Like what else is there to look at? Okay, overall, you have the Isis card. Okay, so Isis has a lot of attributes of the High Priestess in the tarot. Very much about, what's mysterious, maybe what's not being spoken about. But there's also a very strong sense of nurturing. So I always feel like this card comes up when we need to think about ourselves and we need to take care of ourselves. And sometimes where we need to just display patience, because there may be a lot of things that have not quite gotten to the point that we need them to, but they will. I mean, we will get there. You will get to where you need to go. And then we have the Two of Bats, which is the Two of Swords. So this is a stalemate card. There's this definite sense of feeling like, there needs to be a move needs to be made, a decision needs to be made. We're seeing a lot of decisions in here and a lot of changes, some of which we may like, some of which we may not like, and we may be worried about what the outcome's going to be. But at some point we are going to need to make a move, but definitely, you're going to need this time for reflection, going within. Osiris in the first house, you can trust your own judgment. So don't let other people tell you that you don't know what's right or you don't know what you're talking about, especially if you're thinking about doing something very unconventional, okay? So, all right, so that's our reading there. Let me just pull some Moonology cards, a couple of them just for this week, just to see what advice we could have that goes along with this. And let's see if we got one. Actually, I ended up with 3. So, first card is the Balsamic Moon, A Time for Healing. Okay, so again, with this Hermit in the first house, and with Anubis in the 7th, you may need to take some time out to figure out who you are, what you want, where you are. Your second card is the New Moon in Leo. Confidence is your key to success. So I'm seeing a lot of that too. Don't believe that you can't do it, because you can. You just might not have all the pieces of the puzzle yet, but you will get there. This is a new moon, so this would be like, this is a new start. You're not gonna be at the end of the road when you're starting. And then we have New Moon in Libra. A new romantic cycle begins. So for some of you, if you're looking for love, this is great. But either way, I mean, even if you've been, it doesn't necessarily mean like if you're in a relationship, the new romantic cycle can also just mean that you are, whatever the situation's been between you and your partner, this could be a new phase of your relationship. So that's all what we have for this week. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next week.